Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today we are going to be making our post-World Juniors 2021 NHL mock draft and top 25 prospect predictions. Now we're past the World Juniors officially with the US of A winning the gold medal, but how does this year's World Juniors in the last month of prospect games actually affect my rankings? And when it comes to this top 25, who do I see being the highest picks in this draft and who do I see being the best prospects in this 2021 NHL entry draft? Watch till the end for all the prospect talk and hit that subscribe button if you're new. 70% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed, so join the Grab Gang for more draft and prospect videos just like this one. Now I'm going to show my picks from 25 to 21 right here on this side, but for my prospect rankings today, we are going to start out in the top 20. And as we discussed before on the different mock drafts for this year, this 2021 draft is on the weaker side, but it is very even. And there's going to be a lot of surprises, especially in the first round of this draft, of guys that you wouldn't even have heard of possibly getting in. A lot of Chibrikovs, I think, could be happening in this draft too. But I think this 2021 draft still has some good top-end talent, but it really is even in the first round, which will create a lot of movement in my rankings as well. Since about a month and a half ago, there's been a lot of different picks in the top 20 and a lot of shuffling as well. So we'll get into that right now. Going into the number 20 spot, this player was at number 20 though last time around. One of the few players that has not moved on this list. Going to number 20, I have Swedish winger Oskar Olsson. Now, Olsson started out in the SHL this year, and I thought got off to a pretty good start, had 4 points, got 3 goals, and I thought looked very solid in his position. I mean, in the SHL, it's obviously one of the hardest leagues for draft eligibles to have consistent scoring in, but I thought Olsson, from the couple of games that I watched, was pretty effective in a lesser role for his team, but I thought still offensively had a decent bit of creativity. He's a guy that does have a lot of swagger to him. He's a guy that does play on a little bit of an edge as well. Wasn't able to get much of a role with Team Sweden this year in the World Juniors, but I still thought played decently all right. But doesn't move anywhere from the last time around, and I think number 20 is a pretty perfect spot for him. Going on to number 19, though, I have from QMJHL, Xavier Bourgault. Now, Bourgault has gone off to a pretty good start in the QMJHL this year, and I've been a pretty big fan of Bourgault for quite a while. I'm not sure if he'll enter my top 15, but I do think, from what I've seen from the QMJHL at least, Bourgault is just a great overall player, and to me at least, I mean, the progression is pretty solid from last year too. I'm really hoping that we'll see more of him once the QMJHL starts to resume, because again, I think he had 12 points in 10 games played to start out this season, but I've been pretty impressed with Bourgault in terms of his playmaking, in terms of overall offensive instincts, and I think if he continues that this season, he could probably be higher by the end of the year. But then I'm going to go on to number 18. This is one of my favorite players in this 2021 draft, a guy that from last year in the WHL was one of my favorites. Sadly, he's not played yet because the WHL season is still kind of up in the air, but it should be starting soon. That being my boy, Logan Stankoven. Now, Stankoven is a really, really fun player to watch. A guy that's on the smaller side of things, a little bit undersized, but I still think plays the way you'd want in the undersized forwards type of thing. I mean, with him, he's always playing well. Well, I wouldn't say that, but I would say he's kind of like a Payne Krebs-ish, where he is not really taking many shifts off. He's a great grinder, great player that you want to have on your middle six in the NHL. Then going on to number 17 though, and this is a player that also comes from the WHL, but I just love this player, and the only reason why I think I have him this low is because he has not played this season again, because he is in the CHL, he is in the WHL, but I have Cole Sillinger at number 17. And again, the only reason why he is this low is because I just have not seen them this year, and that's kind of holding him back from being higher on this list, because from what I saw from him last year in the WHL, he was a commanding force for the Medicine Hat Tigers. I mean, that team was terrible offensively, but Cole Sillinger was like the only guy reliably getting points on the board and reliably just putting in fantastic games. But then we're going to go on to number 14, and this is where, or actually, number 14, number 16, my bad, and this is where it gets really, really competitious, because there's a lot of players around this spot that could be higher, but this player is at the same exact spot as they were in the last mock draft. At number 16, I have Simone Robertsson. Now, unfortunately, Robertsson wasn't included on the Swedish roster this past year in the World Juniors, but when it comes to his play in the SHL so far, I think he's been pretty decent. season. Hasn't gotten a point on the board for what I have seen. I think he's been pretty effective. Also has been great in the minors as well in Sweden. And I think with Simon Robertsson, at least from what I've seen so far, he's just a very crafty, effective, speedy winger that I think has a lot of value in the NHL. Maybe not a top 10 pick in this draft, but a guy that I think when it comes to the soft skill he has, when it comes to the puck handling he's able to bring out at a moment's notice, he's a guy that I would love to have on a middle six power play role in the future, and a guy that definitely I think is worth a top 20 pick in this draft. But now we're going to go inside the top 15, and coming in at my 15th best prospect in the 2021 NHL draft, I have my Russian stud, Nikita Chibrikov. And Nikita Chibrikov is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated prospects in this draft. I started watching him about 2 months ago, and I've seen a couple of games, both in the KHL and in the MHL, and I've just been really blown away by the skill that Chibrikov brings. He hasn't put up insane numbers in the KHL. I think he has 2 points in 12 games played, but he's been very good in the VHL from what I've heard also, and in the MHL, I think he's been very effective too. But Chibrikov is a guy that it just is pure offensive talents. He's a guy that in transition is a pretty effective player as well, which I love to see. His speed is electrifying. His straight line speed is just phenomenal, and his edges are very unique as well. But then going on to number 14, just like Chibrikov, this player is in the same spot as a month ago's draft, but I don't really see any movement there because, of course, he's not playing the QMJHL pretty much since then, since they ended up shutting it down for a little bit. But at number 14, I still think Zachary is definitely worthy of a top 20 pick at least. When it comes to LaRue, I am really fascinated by his season so far because he's not playing on the greatest team offensively, but LaRue has still been very, very effective. And I think LaRue just has a lot of things to his game. I think when it comes to LaRue, he isn't the biggest player by any means, but he uses his size very well in a lot of situations, especially in transition, that I think will help him to the NHL level. He's a very physical, very rugged player, but the skill has also seen a big boost, I think, throughout this season. But then going on to number 13, and once again, this player has not moved, and another player that is still not played this season, that being Chaz Lucius of the USDP. Now, Chaz Lucius has not played this season because of injury, not that the USDP is not playing, but from what I can tell, he's still not played a game yet in the USDP, which is unfortunate. But when it comes to Chaz Lucius, I still think he has the potential to be one of, if not the best goal scorer in this draft. But the main concern for me is still that skating speed. Unless that takes a huge, big step, like Anton Lundell put a huge, big step in his skating speed this past offseason, I'm not sure where Chaz Lucius will fit on an NHL roster. I think it really all depends on that skating. But in terms of goal scoring, if he can improve that skating, he will be a lethal sniper at the NHL level. That shot is just brilliant, and he can almost score from every bit on the ice, it seems like. Then going on to number 12, though. This, in my opinion, might be the most overrated prospect in this draft from what I've seen. I'm not really sure why so many people are putting him in their top fives. I can see the potential there, but at least from what I've seen so far in the SHL and the Junior 20 in Sweden, I don't know why he is as high as he is. That being defenseman Simon Edvinsson. Now, I want to say right now that I think Simon Edvinsson, potential-wise, could be one of the best prospects in this draft. But the more I watch him, and I've said this on different videos and streams as well, but the more I watch Edvinsson, the more I just get the sense that he's a better Philip Broberg. And a lot of people know I'm not the biggest fan of Philip Broberg besides his skating, and he has improved a little bit since then, but still not as much as he needs to. But with Simon Edvinsson, I see a lot of the same things. He's a big, great skating defenseman, but the decision-making is worse than Broberg. It can be absolutely haunting sometimes. I think he does have pretty decent skill, but it's just coming all together, that's just the problem right now. But we're going to go to a player who I think is a lot less of a risky bet. At number 11, I have from the WHL top defender, Carson Lambos. Now, technically, Carson Lambos isn't from the WHL this season. He's playing in the Liga, or the Junior 20 Liga right now. And I think Carson Lambos has been okay there. Defensively, he's been solid, but in terms of offense, I haven't really seen too much that's been too impressive. But I'll wait to make some big judgments on that before I actually put him a lot lower. But when it comes to Carson Lambos, I do like him quite a bit. The main thing is the defense. He can become an amazing shutdown defender in the NHL someday, I think. A second pairing shutdown penalty killer as well, I think will be in his game. Now, I think when it comes to comparables, I talked about Savone Edvinsson, I think, being a little bit of a better Philip Broberg. I mean, Carson Lambos is just a lot better of a Braden Schneider type. He's a guy that defensively doesn't have as many holes in his game, or at least consistency holes in his game. He's very reliable, and especially in terms of getting it out of the zone, is very productive there too. But in terms of stick work, in terms of gap control, he's one of the best defenders in this draft, I think. But now we're going to go inside the top 10, and this is where the parties start to happen, because we've seen a lot of movement, especially in this top 10 in my rankings, and you guys will not want to miss these ones, because I have some spicy takes ahead right now. But coming in at number 10, depending on how you think, this might not be a spicy take, but this guy drops 2 spots from last month's mock draft, that being Finnish center Aatu. Now, you guys know, I love my Finns. I think a lot of the Finland players, top end wise, that Finland is producing are some of my favorites prospect wise in the world. With Aatu, I just don't get the feeling that he's worthy of a top 5 pick, worthy of a top 8 pick. And with the way he's playing right now this year, I don't think he's worth a top 10 pick. But again, you do still have to factor in the 2 years prior, which were pretty good, especially back in 2019, where he had a fantastic start to his Super Junior career in the Liga in Finland. And I feel like there is still potential there to become a really good player. But now we're going to go on to number 9. This is another player that's dropped 2 spots, but a lot of that is because he hasn't really been playing too much, that being Dylan Guenther. Now, Dylan Guenther has played 4 games in the AJHL, getting 5 points, and we'll see if he transitions to the WHL once that season starts going. And again, one of the main reasons why Dylan Guenther is down this low is just because he hasn't played that much, but I was able to catch a game of him in the AJHL, and he was all right. Wasn't absolutely amazing, which I'm kind of worried about, because he should be amazing in the AJHL, but I'm going to reserve some judgment there too much, at least until he gets to the WHL. We'll see what happens, but I still like Dylan Guenther quite a bit. From what I was seeing in the WHL last year, he was a dominant offensive player who had both great playmaking abilities and a fantastic sniper shot as well. I think Guenther has, in the top level, potential to be a top 6 player. It's just that we'll have to wait and see what he does in the WHL this year before I make him outside my top 10 at least. That's what I'm going with right now. But now I'm going to go on to number 8, and compared to the last mock draft, this is probably the player I've watched some of the most since then, at least, and he is a guy that I've been very impressed with in the SHL, very impressed with in Sweden's minor leagues, and I think is having a pretty fantastic season, and has a lot more value than I think more people give him credit for. That is Swedish winger Fabian Lysell. Now, Fabian Lysell is a guy that I watched, again, a lot since last month, and I'm pleasantly surprised by Lysell and what he's been able to accomplish. I said last month that I wasn't able to watch too much of him. I watched a lot more tape of him, and I come by pretty impressed. Now, I obviously see the passing ability and like that a lot with Lysell, but I agree quite a bit with some of the notions that he is underrated defensively. I've seen a lot of great plays from him where it would just be a disaster in the defensive zone for his team, but Lysell would keep play going and keep trying to grind play out. And I think he has a lot of value to his game just overall. But now inside the top 7, and we now go on to the 7th best prospect of the 2021 NHL entry draft. And at the 7th spot, I have another Swede, but Swedish goaltender, Jesper Wallstedt. Jesper Wallstedt is the man. When it comes to goaltending, I think is the best prospect we've seen since Andrei Vasilevsky, if I'm going to be honest here. I do prefer him over Yaroslav Askarov, and obviously it's easy to say that with how Askarov played in the World Juniors, but beforehand, I think I would still have preferred Wallstedt. When it comes to Wallstedt, he was also great in the World Juniors too, got 2 games played, I think got like a .923 save percentage, but he was just continuing where he left off in the SHL. He played 9 games in the SHL, getting a .920 save percentage, and was absolutely phenomenal. It is exceedingly rare for any goaltender in the draft year to just play in the SHL, let alone play as much as Wallstedt has and play as good as Wallstedt has. He is, in one word, mature. He is never under pressure, it seems like. He is always calm, always collected in almost every single circumstance. But we're now going to go on to number 6, and the 6th best prospect in the 2021 draft. And this is another guy that dropped a little bit from last time around, but wasn't too major, I don't think, but I still think is worthy of a top 6 pick, and so far in the NCAA has still been pretty fantastic. That being Canadian center / winger Kent Johnson. Now, Kent Johnson to me is one of the most fun prospects in this draft. He has so much skill to him. His speed is electrifying. His skating, as his edge work is just, it's just kind of insane to think about when you look back on it. But I think with Kent Johnson, there is still some concerns with his overall game. I think intensity-wise, off the puck, it can sometimes be a little bit of a worry. But I think some of that is just him being in his draft year. But when you look at the potential, I think he's definitely worthy of a top 10 pick. His skating, his puck handling, his shot has definitely improved as well. And I think those offensive instincts will lend himself to a pretty decent position. I could see him being higher than a second-line player. I could see him being a first-line power play player in the future and being a great overall offensive threat. But now we're going to go inside the top 5, and it is time. We're going to go to the next player here in the 5th best prospect in the 2021 draft. This is a guy that, again, has not played this year, or actually has played, but hasn't had too much workload. That being Brandt Clarke of the Barrie Colts. Now, he has come to Slovakia and is going to be playing there for this season, at least until the OHL comes back, and that is going to be huge for him because in that type of situation, even though Slovakia obviously isn't the strongest league, it's no slouch, and he'll be playing on the second pairing, it seems like, for the most part, and getting a pretty reliable role, which is pretty great to see. But I think with Brandt Clarke, the main thing is just offensive tool sets. He's a phenomenal offensive transition defenseman too. He's just able to get it out of his zone with absolute ease, and he's compared himself to Erik Karlsson. I don't quite see that, but I do see a guy that offensively as a power play guy, possibly a second defenseman in the NHL level, being a pretty perfect role for him, and a guy that I could see getting 40, maybe even 50 points at the next level too. I think Brandt Clarke offensively is going to be fantastic, and that is where he will make his money. But then we're going to go on to number 4, and this is a guy that has been just one of the best risers over these past few months, but continues to be great in his season play. Unfortunately, missed the World Juniors for Team Sweden, but I still think is going to be absolutely amazing. That being William Eklund. Now, he ended up getting COVID and had to miss the World Juniors because of that, and it looks like he'll have appendix surgery as well, weirdly. So his draft year is going really interesting so far, but from what I have seen in the SHL this year, William Eklund has been phenomenal. I think he has 14 points in 22 games played this year. William Eklund, I will say, a lot of people will say that he's been carried by Alexander Holtz, but I think that is far from the case. Maybe in his first couple of games in the SHL, but as the season wore on, William Eklund in multiple games I thought was more effective, driving play better than Alexander Holtz, was playing better than Alexander Holtz just overall, and was the better player. It wasn't all the time, but there were some games where that was the case, and I came out pleasantly surprised by that actually being the case. But now we're going to go on to the 3rd spot inside the top 3. And man, I'm just going to say this right now. These 3 players especially are so tight in my rankings. It's kind of crazy. All 3 of them I could have at number 1 at any given instant. But I love all 3 of these guys, for sure. But coming in at number 3 in the 3rd best prospect in the 2021 draft, I have my American D-man, Luke Hughes. To me, Luke Hughes has been playing his best hockey over these past couple of weeks, and it's kind of sad because we've had the World Juniors there and not many people are paying attention, but Luke Hughes has been phenomenal, especially in the last month or so. I think Luke Hughes is a guy that potential-wise, though, is where you will mostly look at him. Because when it comes to Luke Hughes, he has such good size, such a good body around him, but the skating is phenomenal for his size. His offensive instincts are great. His transition game is stupendous. And I think there's a lot of potential there defensively, too. We're now going to go to number 2, the 2nd best prospect in this 2021 NHL entry draft, as of right now at least. And I'm going to say this right now. If you have number 1, that is perfectly fine. Perfectly all right. And I think there is a great argument for him to be number 1. I had number 1 in last month's mock draft. But the more I watch him, the more I get disappointed. I was saying early on, especially in the first couple of games, that I thought Owen Power looked fantastic. But recently, he will come at number 2 because of his performance over the last month or so. With me, Owen Power has the potential, he totally has the potential, to be the best prospect in this draft. But from what I've seen recently, it just has not been good in almost all areas. I think he started off well offensively and was all right defensively, but almost every single game since then, those first couple of weeks in the NCAA season, it's just been downhill. I think, again, potential-wise, he's along the Luke Hughes side of things where his size, his speed, his skating is terrific, and I think offensively he'll have a lot of potential, and defensively, I still think he has more potential than Luke Hughes, but I just have not seen it so far. Defensively, I think he's been really poor overall in the NCAA. His stick work has been just terrible. His gap control has been super weak. And I think this is a guy that has potential to be so good. And that's why I'm frustrated with Owen Powers, because there should be more this year. There should be more that is in play here. We're right now going to go to number 1. And I know, some of you guys will be surprised by this, but I want to say this right now. In terms of performance, I think William Eklund is the only prospect that holds a candle to how good this player has been this season in his season play, in his World Juniors play. I don't think there's any prospect right now that is as good as this player this season. And I think potential-wise has made so many strides with his skill, so many strides with his play, and right now is maybe my favorite prospect in this draft. Coming from Team USA, number 1 in the 2021 post-World Juniors mock draft, I have centerman Matthew Beniers. Matthew Beniers, to me, is the number 1 right now as it stands. And you might be saying, oh, why are you overreacting to the World Juniors? I'm not. I went back during the World Juniors, watched even more of his play in Michigan, and he is absolutely legit. He hasn't had as much points as Kent Johnson, but I would not look at that whatsoever. When it comes to Kent Johnson, he's a lot more of a point getter. With Matthew Beniers, he does all of the little things you want. Face-off wise, he is unbelievable at such a young age. Was playing as USA's second line center as a draft eligible and was phenomenal. He was playing in the last few seconds of that Finland game, got the last face-off in that Finland game. Can't remember what happened in the Canada one, but when it comes to Matty Beniers, he was able to get instant trust with the USA coaching group and was able to do phenomenal in that role defensively and transition-wise. I will say this right now, Matthew Beniers might have been one of the best transition, if not the best transition player of the entire World Juniors. He was absolutely insane in driving play, getting puck possession back, and just keeping the puck away from everybody. You saw just throughout the tournament how good he was in terms of shielding the puck, keeping it, and grinding play along the boards. He is such a madman out there, such a monster with the puck. I think this is a guy that in terms of potential might not have the biggest in this draft, but I think in terms of making it and being a fantastic NHL player, Matthew Beniers is not just the most NHL ready prospect right now, but I think is the best prospect out of this draft. I think is going to be a first line player, a first line center in the NHL, and to me, he's the best prospect in this draft as of right now, and with how he's playing, he is number 1. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Let me know down in the comments down below what you agree and disagree with, and share this video with your friends. Get the mock draft out there. Click on this card for all my World Juniors content right on one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video or live stream. Goodbye.